Question 1. Which of the following statements about the protoplasm of a cell is not correct? Now, the protoplasm is actually made up of the nucleus, or it's a collective term for the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So knowing this, let's look at the options. Is a gelatinous mass, is the liquid part of the nucleus, consists of cytoplasm and nucleus, contains cellular organelles. Now, if this protoplasm is made up of the nucleus and the cytoplasm, the organelles are contained in the cytoplasm. So D cannot be an answer. Consists of cytoplasm and nucleus, that's all we have here. So C cannot be an answer. Is the liquid part of the nucleus. Now, the liquid part of the nucleus is actually called the nucleoplasm. The nucleoplasm, just as we have the cytoplasm as a liquid part of the cell, is a gelatinous mass. Yes, the cytoplasm is a gelatinous mass. So our answer in this case is B. It is the liquid part of the nucleus. This statement is not correct or true about the protoplasm. Question 2. A bacterial cell differs from eukaryotic cell by having no. Now, a bacterial cell is a prokaryotic cell. And prokaryotic cells are known for two unique features. Prokaryotic cells are known for not having a nucleus and not having membrane-bound organelles. Not having a nucleus and not having membrane-bound organelles like the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, the peroxisomes, the lysosomes, the chloroplast, the vacuole. So a bacterial cell, which is a prokaryotic cell, differs from eukaryotic cell by having no A. Cell membrane, B. Cell wall, C. Nuclear material, D. Nuclear membrane. Now, since we just said that this cell, a bacterial cell, is prokaryotic and there is no membrane-bound organelle, now the nucleus is a membrane-bound organelle. And what is the membrane of the nucleus? It's the nuclear membrane. That means a bacterial cell will not have a nuclear membrane. So D is our answer. Question 3. A typical plant cell is mainly distinguished from an animal cell by the possession of. So a plant cell is distinguished from an animal cell by the possession of. That is, what does the plant cell possess that the animal cell does not possess? Chloroplast and cell wall. The plant cell has chloroplast and it has cell wall. Cell wall and cytoplasm. Now, the plant cell has cell wall, it has cytoplasm, but the animal cell also has a cytoplasm. Cell wall is exclusive to plant cell. Mitochondrion is found in both plant cell and animal cell. Chloroplast and nucleus. The chloroplast is unique to plant cells, while the nucleus is found in both the plant cell and the animal cell. However, the chloroplast and the cell wall are two features that are unique to only the plant cell. That means option A is our answer. Question 4. All hereditary characteristics in a cell are passed on from parent cell to daughter cell through the process of. Now, fertilization is the fusion of the sperm and the egg to form a zygote. Sperm and egg to form a zygote. Implantation is simply the attachment of the zygote to the wall of the uterus to form the placenta. Now, mitosis is the cell division that occurs during growth. Meiosis is a cell division that results in the formation of the sex cells. Meiosis is a cell division that results in the formation of the sex cells or the gametes. Now, our question is asking us how hereditary characters are passed on from parent cell to daughter cell. From parent cell to daughter cell. The answer is fertilization, because during fertilization, a sperm cell is a parent cell, an egg cell is a parent cell. When they fuse together, they form a daughter cell called the zygote. And this zygote now carries hereditary character from both the sperm cell and the egg cell. So our answer is fertilization. Question 5. All the following organelles have membranes except. All the following organelles have membranes except. Now, the vacuole is a membrane-bound organelle. That is, it's an organelle that is surrounded by a membrane. In fact, an organelle is not just a specialized structure within the cell. An organelle is a membrane-bound structure. And this is the reason why the ribosome is not considered an organelle, because the ribosome is not membrane bound. So the vacuole is membrane bound. The cell membrane is not an organelle. Not an organelle. Now, so this is an organelle. That automatically means that it's membrane bound. The cell membrane is not an organelle. The nucleus is an organelle. It is bound by the nuclear membrane. Then the cell wall is not an organelle. So if we should focus on organelles, the vacuole has its it has its membrane. The nucleus has its membrane. So I need to flag this question. There's no answer to this question. Question 6. Animal cells are different from plant cells because animal cells are different from plant cells because animal cells have. So let's look at what animal cells possess that plant cells do not possess. Now, centrioles are structures that are found only in animal cells. They are not found in plant cells. Chloroplasts are found only in plant cells. Large vacuoles are found only in plant cells, and definite cell wall found only in plant cells. So the only structure here that are found in animal cells but not found in plant cell is the centriole. So our answer is option A, centrioles. Question 7. Carbohydrates are stored in the animal cell in the form of carbohydrates are stored in the animal cell in the form of. Now, maltose is a lower form of carbohydrate. Now, starch is a stored form of carbohydrate. Glycogen is also a stored form of carbohydrate. Now, plastids are organelles. For example, the chloroplast is a plastid. Now, so these are the two forms of stored carbohydrates, starch and glycogen. Now, glycogen is a stored form of carbohydrate in animals. Now, you see, animals break down their carbohydrates into glucose. Excess glucose is converted to glycogen, and this glycogen is stored. So, glycogen is the stored form of carbohydrate in animals. In the case of starch, starch is the stored form of carbohydrate in plants. So let's look at our question again. Carbohydrates are stored in the animal cell. In the animal cell. So starch is the stored form of carbohydrate in plants. Glycogen is the stored form of carbohydrates in animals. So our answer is the option C. Question 8. Cells that utilize a lot of energy. Cells that utilize a lot of energy as characterized by the presence of a large number of. Now, to answer this question, you need to understand the functions of different cell organelles or structures. Now, vacuoles are for storage. Endoplasmic reticulum are for intracellular transport. That is transport of materials within the cell. The ribosomes are for the synthesis of protein. Synthesis of protein. And the mitochondria, also called or referred to as the powerhouse of the cell, are responsible for generating energy in the form of ATP. And the mitochondria generate this energy simply by burning sugars. Now, so if a cell utilizes a lot of energy, and we're going to look at an organelle that supplies the cell with energy, which is the mitochondria. So that leaves us with option D as our answer, since it's the powerhouse of the cell that supplies energy in the form of ATP. A cell that uses a lot of energy would have a lot of mitochondria. Question 9. DNA in eukaryotic cells is contained in the. Now, again, eukaryotic cells are cells that are characterized by two interesting features: the presence of a nucleus and the presence of membrane-bound organelles. Membrane-bound organelles. So, in eukaryotic cells, the DNA will be contained in the nucleus because the nucleus carries the genetic materials. So our answer is the nucleus. Central vacuole is for storage. Golgi body is for packaging and transport of materials within the cell. The lysosomes are for intracellular digestion. So our answer is the nucleus. It houses the genetic material, which in this case is DNA. Question 10. In which of the following is a cellulose cell wall present? A cellulose cell wall present. Now, cellulose is a structural polysaccharide. It's a structural carbohydrate which is found in the cell wall of eukaryotic cells. And cell wall on its own is only found in plant cells. Plant cells. Cellulose is a structural carbohydrate found in eukaryotes. So we're looking at two things here. We need to look for a cell or organism that is a eukaryote, and then we also need to look for a cell or organism that is a plant cell. Mammalian white blood corpuscles, also called cells. Mammalian white blood corpuscles, these are animal cells. So this cannot be our answer. The amoeba is an animal-like protist. It's a protozoa, first animal. So again, this cannot be our answer. Paramecium is another animal-like protist. So that is another protozoa. Now, the Spirogyra is a filamentous algae. It is a plant and it is eukaryotic. That means our answer is the Spirogyra. Question 11. In which of the following parts of a cell is the chromosome found? In which of the following part of the cell is the chromosome found? Now, the chromosome are thread-like structures that are found in the nucleus of a cell if the cell is eukaryotic. If the cell is eukaryotic, the chromosomes are found within the nucleus. Now, however, if the cell is prokaryotic, because prokaryotic cells do not have membrane-bound organelles, the chromosomes are found lying freely in the cytoplasm in a special region called the nucleoid. The nucleoid. Now, in which of the following parts of a cell is the chromosome found? Now, the question does not indicate if it's a eukaryotic cell or a prokaryotic cell. So let's look at the options. Option A, the Golgi body. No, the Golgi body is an organelle on its own that carries out packaging and transportation. The cytoplasm is the jelly part of the cell that contains all other organelles. The cell membrane is a flexible, selectively permeable layer that surrounds the entire cell. And then the nucleus. So of all these options, this is the only structure that carries or stores chromosomes. So our answer is the option D. Question 12. In which of the labeled parts would molecules of water and carbon dioxide combine to form sugar? molecules of water and carbon dioxide combine to form sugar. Now, looking at these two, if we combine these two and these two reactants and sugar is the product, this is clearly describing the process of photosynthesis. This is clearly describing the process of photosynthesis. And photosynthesis occurs in the organelle called the chloroplast. The chloroplast. Now let's look at our label parts. Which part is the chloroplast? Now part number 1 is the cell wall. Part number 2 is the cell membrane. Part number 3 is the Golgi body. Part number 4 is the chloroplast. Part number 5 still labeled as the cell wall. Part number 6 is the vacuole, and part number 7 is the mitochondria. So the part that is the chloroplast is the part labeled 4. The part labeled 4. So our answer is option B. Just to explain again why some of us may be wondering why it's part number 7, not the chloroplast. Now, when you look at the cell and you see a structure labeled this way, and you see either something like a zigzag inside, that is usually describing the mitochondrion. Yes, this is how we represent them in diagrams. Then when you see that an empty structure but still sausage shaped, or sometimes you just see it with lines inside, then this is the chloroplast. So get the difference. A mitochondrion will always be represented as a sausage with a zigzag or spiral shaped structures within, while a chloroplast is either an empty saucer shaped structure or it has lines stacked on each other. Question 13. In which of the following tissues are guard cells located? Now, guard cells are the cells that when they open and close, or when they contract and relax, they regulate the opening and closing of the stomata. The stomata are the openings in the leaves via which water, oxygen and carbon dioxide find their way in and out of the cell. So this is a guard cell. This is another guard cell. So when they contract and relax, they control this opening of the stomata. Now the question is, in which part of the plant tissues are guard cells located? Now guard cells are located on the outermost part of the leaves, and this outermost part is called the epidermis. Epidermis. So our answer is the option A. Question 14. Most of the energy in the cell is produced in the cytoplasm is the center for metabolic reactions. The lysosome, so this is for metabolic reactions. The lysosome is for intracellular digestion, to break down materials within the cell, intracellular digestion. And the plastid, just like the chloroplast is an example of a plastid, it's for the production of food production via photosynthesis. Then the mitochondrion is for energy production. Sometimes the mitochondrion is referred to as the powerhouse of the cell. Now let's look at the question again. Most of the energy in the cell is produced in the, so our answer is the powerhouse of the cell, that is the mitochondrion. So option A is our answer. Question 15. Which of the groups of structures listed below contains chloroplast? Which of the structures listed below contain chloroplast? So right from the outside is the epidermis. Okay, we begin to have the chloroplast right from the epidermis. So you see them, one in that order, 2 and 3. So our answer is the option C, 1, 2 and 3. First 3 layers of the leaf. That is where the chloroplasts are abundant. That's your palisade tissue. Your palisade cells located in the mesophyll tissue, right from the epidermis to the mesophyll tissue. Question 16. One of the differences between plant and animal cells is that in plants, a cell wall is made of cellulose, but animal cell wall is made of chitin. Now, animals do not have a cell wall, so that eliminates this as our answer. Animals do not have a cell wall. Option B, large vacuoles are absent but present in animals. Now, large vacuoles are not present in animal cells. In animal cells, the vacuoles are either small and numerous, or they are not even present at all. So that eliminates option B. Option C, cells have less distinct outline, but animal cells have distinct outline. Again, this is not true. Animal cells do not have distinct outlines. In fact, most animal cells are amoeboid in shape, or amoeboid in nature. That is, they can change their shapes to enable them move from one part of the body to another, carry out their functions. For example, the white blood cells are amoeboid in shape. And then we know that plant cells have distinct outline. Plant cells have large vacuoles. Plant cells have cellulose. Now, option D says carbohydrates are stored as starch but as glycogen in animals. Yes, animal cells store their carbohydrate as glycogen. Glycogen is a stored carbohydrate in animals, while starch is a stored carbohydrate in plants. So our correct answer is the option D. Question 17. Pyrenoid is present in the structure labeled. Now, the pyrenoid is actually a spherical structure that is found in the chloroplast. If you look at the chlamydomonas, it also has a pyrenoid. The chlamydomonas, it has a cup-shaped chloroplast. This is the cup-shaped chloroplast. Now, within its chloroplast, there is a pyrenoid. Now, the organism we have here is the Spirogyra, and this is a filamentous algae. Now, the Spirogyra has spiral-shaped chloroplast. Spiral-shaped chloroplast. So what we're seeing here, these spiral-shaped structures are the chloroplast, and the tiny spherical structures within the spiral-shaped structure are the pyrenoids. And if we look at the labels carefully, it is the label 4 that touches a pyrenoid. So our answer to this question is the option B. because option B tells us about 4, and we can see 4 touching a pyrenoid, which I said is a structure that is usually located within the chloroplast. So the spiral shaped structure we're seeing here is the chloroplast of this Spirogyra, while this cup shaped chloroplast we're seeing here is the chloroplast of the Chlamydomonas. Question 18. Spirogyra is regarded as a multicellular plant because it's regarded as a multicellular. Now, multi means many, cellular means cell. Multicellular now translates as many cells. Many cells. Spirogyra is regarded as a multicellular plant because the filaments consist of one cell only. We just say that multicellular means many cells. The cylindrical cells are linked end to end. C, its cells are joined to form organs. Cells do not join to form organs. Cells join to form tissues. And option D, its cells are linked together by cytoplasmic strands. Now, the fact that we have cells, it's cells, plural, multicellular, then they are linked together by cytoplasmic strands. Yes, we have cells here as well, but the Spirogyra cells are not cylindrical. The cells are not cylindrical. Now, this is a Spirogyra. So from this point to this point is one cell. Now, this is another cell here. This makes up another cell. So from this point and then another cell again. Now, these are the cytoplasmic strands that connect these cells. So based on this explanation, the answer here is the option D. Question 19. The cell as the basic unit of life consists of cytoplasm and the vacuole. Now, the cytoplasm is an important component that qualifies the cell as a basic unit, but not the vacuole, because not all cells have vacuoles. Cell wall and vacuole. Not all cells have cell wall. Not all cells have vacuole. Nucleus and cell wall. Yes, the nucleus controls the activity of the cell, but not now cell wall. Not all cells have cell wall. And then cytoplasm, it regulates the metabolic activities within the cell, and the nucleus controls the activities of the cell. So our answer is the option A, cytoplasm and the nucleus. In fact, it was in 1835 that Felix Dujardin observed that the cytoplasm and the nucleus were actually the living part of the cell. Then in 1839, a Czechoslovakian scientist by name Porkinje coined the word protoplasm to describe the collection of the cytoplasm and the nucleus. So answer is cytoplasm and the nucleus. Question 20. The cell is a functional unit of living organisms because option A, all the cells in a multicellular organism function as a single cell. Now this is not true. All the cells in a multicellular organisms function as a single cell. This is not true. Let's take a human being for example. Your red blood cells do not even perform the same functions with your white blood cell. Your nerve cells are different from your muscle cells. So all the cells in a multicellular organism do not function as a single cell. They're independent. Option B, the function of a multicellular organization or organism, so this also means organism, is the sum total of the functions of its constituent cells. Now this is actually true. The function of a multicellular organism is a function of the total sum of the functions of its constituent cells. Option C, the function of a single cell is superior to that of the multicellular organism. This is not true. Option D, multicellular organisms are made up of cells. Yes, now this is true. Multicellular organisms are made up of cells, but our question is saying that the cell is a functional unit of living organisms because the correct answer now is option B, because the function of the organism as a whole is a function of the total functions of the individual cells. So what this option is saying here is that if you remove these individual cells, then the multicellular organism ceases to function. So our correct answer is the option B. Question 21. The cell membrane consists of... Now, the cell membrane is what we call a phospholipid bilayer. The cell membrane is actually described as a phospholipid bilayer. So that means it's a double layer. There's a layer on the outside and there's a layer on the inside. If it goes like that, the phospholipid, that is a lipid that has phosphate. The phospholipid is arranged, the phospholipid on its own, just for explanation's sake, has two components. The phospholipid has a head and a tail. The head, these circular regions, are the phosphate part, while the tails are the lipid. So this is the head is phosphate, while the tail is the lipid. So, and the head, which is phosphate, is hydrophilic. Hydrophilic means water loving or water attracting, while the tails, which are lipid, are hydrophobic. Hydrophobic here means water hating. So it's a phospholipid bilayer, and then on the surface and inside you have special proteins. Yes, you have special proteins. They're not just proteins, they're transport proteins, because of the nature of this structure, some materials cannot actually pass across the cell membrane. That's why it's said to be a selectively permeable membrane. So these proteins will actually need to convey some materials from the outside to the inside, or from the inside to the outside. So now, based on this, let's look at our question again. The cell membrane consists of vitamins. No, vitamins was not mentioned here, but of course, yes, proteins were mentioned here. Lipids and proteins. Lipids were mentioned here, the phospholipid bilayer. Proteins were mentioned here as the transport, the transport carriers. Water, no. Sugar, no. Carbohydrates, no. Lipids, yes. So which one completes our explanation? Option B, lipids and proteins. So option B is the answer. Question 22. The cytoplasm of the cell is considered a very important component because it, option A, it regulates the amount of energy in the cell. Amount of energy is regulated by mitochondrion. Is the outermost part of the cell. The outermost part of the cell is the cell membrane in animal cells now, or the cell wall in plant cells. Suspends all cell organelles. Now this is true. The cytoplasm has been referred to as the soup of the cell. It's a jelly-like substance within the cell that all other cell components are contained in the cytoplasm, and metabolic reactions also occur within the cytoplasm. Option D is solely responsible for cell division. Now the nucleus is responsible for cell division. So from this explanation, we can clearly see that the cytoplasm of the cell is considered a very important component because it suspends all cell organelles. So it's housing all the other cell organelles. So that gives us option C is our answer. Question 23. The diagram represents, this is a filamentous algae. So this is a spirogyra, and a spirogyra is a filament. When cells are joined end to end, so you see another cell is here, another cell is here. When cells are joined end to end in this manner, a filament is formed. So our answer is the option A. So this represents a filament. It's a filamentous algae. Question 24. The first scientist to describe the cell was Theodor Schwann. No, Theodor Schwann came up in 1839, and he proposed that all animals were made up of cells. This man is a German zoologist who proposed that all animals are made up of cells. Felix Dujardin, a French scientist, in 1835 proposed that the living part of the cell is the cytoplasm and the nucleus. Charles Darwin, known as the father of modern evolution, he didn't do anything on cells. So his contribution was towards evolution with his remarkable theory. That's a theory of natural selection. And then Robert Hooke, the English scientist in 1665, was the first to actually observe or study the cell when he took a thin slice of cork. Cork here means back of wood, and actually observed it through a crude microscope, which he invented as at that time. And he actually observed a honeycomb structure. You know the way the honeycomb looks like, tiny empty boxes. And he now called his observation, he called them cells, from the Latin word cellula. Cellula simply means small room. Like they talk about a police cell, small room where criminals are kept. So cell is from the Latin word cellula, which translates in English as small room. This was in 1665, the English scientist Robert Hooke. That means our answer is the option D, Robert Hooke. He was the first scientist to describe the cell. Question 25. The folded portion of mitochondrion is called. Okay, now the mitochondrion is a sausage-shaped organelle. It's double membraned. Now the interesting thing with the inner membrane is that the inner membrane is invaginated, or if you like, it's folded inwards. That's what I mean by invaginated. Okay, so this is the outer membrane. Now this inner membrane, that the invagination is called a crista. Then plural is cristae. Just add the letter E. The invaginations are referred to as the crista singular or cristae plural. And of course, inside you have what we call the mitochondrial matrix. The mitochondrial matrix, which is like the cytoplasm of the mitochondrion. Now, in this matrix, you have enzymes, you have ribosomes, and you have the mitochondrion's own DNA. Yes, the mitochondrion has its own DNA. Okay, then the space in between the outer membrane and the inner membrane is called the mitochondrial space. So the folded portion of the mitochondrion, we just said it now, the folded or the invaginations. So our answer is the crista. That's plural now. Question 26. The hereditary material in a living organism is located inside. Now, the hereditary materials in every organism is located in the nucleus. In the nucleus, except for prokaryotic cells, where because they don't have a nucleus, we see their chromosomes being suspended in the cytoplasm in a region called the nucleus. So our answer in this case is the nucleus. Simple as that. Question 27. The hydra has two body layers of cells called. Okay, now a typical hydra, it belongs to the phylum Coelenterata. Now it actually has two body layers. Yes, two body layers. Yes, this is actually the mouth. If you like, you can call it the hypostome. Now this is the outer layer. The outer layer is the epidermis, while the second layer is the dermis. So I mean the outer layer is the ectoderm. So this is the ectoderm. The outer layer is the ectoderm, while the inner layer is the endoderm. Let me just say this for record's sake. Endoderm. Now, in between the ectoderm and the endoderm is an extracellular fluid called the mesoglia. This is what zoology does to you. You know the names of some crazy stuff. Mesoglia. So let me say this again. A typical hydra has two body layers. The outermost layer is the ectoderm. The inner layer is the endoderm. Ecto, outside. Endo, inside. And I say in between the ectoderm and the endoderm is a layer of extracellular fluid called the mesoglia. So based on this now, let's look at the options. Epidermis and dermis, no. Ectoderm and endoderm, correct. So that's our answer. No need to go any further. Question 28. The living material of the cell consists of, the living material of the cell was discovered in the year 1835 by the French scientist Felix Dujardin. So he proposed that the living material of the cell is the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Then 4 years later, we're looking at 1839 now. 1839 now. The Czechoslovakian scientist by name Porkinje proposed, or he coined, a single term to describe the living material of the cell. He was the one that coined the word protoplasm. Protoplasm. So let's get this now. The person that first observed or described the living material of the cell was Felix Dujardin in 1835. He called them the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Then 1839, Purkinje now just coined a word, protoplasm, to refer to the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So based on this explanation, this historical statement here, we can say that the living material of the cell is not the nucleus and the cell membrane, it's not the cytoplasm and the cell membrane, it's the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So that gives us option C. Question 29. The major function of the cell membrane is that so let's look at a typical cell. The outermost covering, if it's an animal cell, is the cell membrane. Then, of course, if it is a plant cell, there is a cell wall. There's a cell wall. So the major function of the cell membrane, let me start from option D. It's the site for photosynthesis. No. The chloroplast is the site for photosynthesis. Breaks down worn out organelles. No. That job is the job of the lysosomes. Synthesizes proteins. No. That job is the job of the ribosomes. Delimits the cytoplasm. To delimit means, it restricts or contains the cytoplasm. So this is our correct answer. So our answer is the option A. Question 30. The network of double membrane that conveys materials through the cytoplasm is the network of double membrane. Okay, now the endoplasmic reticulum, endoplasmic, this is Latin, it means net within the cytoplasm. Okay, endoplasmic, endo inside, plasmic, cytoplasm, reticulum means net. Now it's a series of double membraned. So this is just a diagram of it, and this structure is responsible for transporting materials within the cell. The plasma membrane just covers the entire cell and determines what enters or exits the cell. The nuclear membrane is the membrane of the nucleus, determines what enters or leaves the nucleus. The mitochondrion is the powerhouse of the cell, which is responsible for producing energy that the cell needs. So our answer here is the endoplasmic reticulum, which is a net within the plasma that is responsible for conveying materials within the cell. Question 31. The nucleus controls the activities of the cell because A. It uses DNA to synthesize enzymes which are used in cell metabolism. B. It's like a brain in the cell. C. Synthesizes hormones. D. Sends out nervous impulses to ensure the functioning of the cytoplasm. Now, the correct answer here is the option A. DNA is what codes for the entire materials within the cell. The DNA is the source of data or information that determines how the cell operates, how the cell is run. So if we say that the nucleus controls the activities of the cell, the nucleus contains a DNA, and this DNA now synthesizes the enzymes, the proteins which we use in cell metabolism. That means our answer is the option A. Question 32. The organelle involved in the transport of substances within a cell. The organelle involved in the transport of substances. So, and I'll just start by eliminating structures here that are not organelles. The ribosome is not an organelle. A, C, and D are organelles. Now, transport of substances within a cell. Now, mitochondria is just for the production of energy. So we have to eliminate this option. Now, the Golgi body is a system of membrane that is involved in transportation. The endoplasmic reticulum now it's also a system of membrane. The difference between them here is that if you look at the Golgi body, the tubules are independent units. There is no connection between them. If you look at the endoplasmic reticulum, the tubules are interconnected, and this is how you differentiate them when you're looking at the diagram of a cell. The endoplasmic reticulum, the tubules are connected to each other, while for the Golgi body, the tubules are separate independent units. Now, for transport of substances within a cell, this is the job of the endoplasmic reticulum. The Golgi body or Golgi apparatus, they convey materials out of the cell. So they convey materials out of the cell. So our correct answer in this case is the endoplasmic reticulum. Question 33. The organelles in cells, which are also referred, so let me underline organelles again. The organelles in cells, which are also referred to as suicidal bags. Suicidal bags. That is, suicidal bags, these are organelles that break down materials within the cell, or they kill worn out structures within the cell. Now, mitochondria, this is for production of energy. So this can be suicidal bags, production of energy. Ribosomes are for protein synthesis. Nuclei controls the activities of the cell, such as cell division, controls cell activities. Then the lysosomes for intracellular digestion. the lysosomes contain special enzymes called hydrolytic enzymes. These are enzymes that break down substrates by adding water. So intracellular digestion, within the cell, they take up materials, worn out materials, digest or break them down, allow the cell to reuse the useful materials, and the waste materials are exported out of the cell for excretion. So if we look at these functions here, the organelle that is responsible, that is referred to as a societal bag, would be our lysosomes. So that's option C. Question 34. The oxygen gas formed in the cell diffuses out of the cytoplasm. The oxygen gas formed in the cell. For oxygen to be formed in the cell, that tells you that that cell is a photosynthetic cell. Because other animal cells take in oxygen and then they produce carbon dioxide, which is expelled. So for oxygen gas to be formed within the cell and then it needs to be to diffuse out, it means that it is a photosynthetic cell. Diffuse out of the cytoplasm into the air spaces through the part labeled. So we are going to pick the cell membrane. It's the job of the cell membrane to allow for the diffusion of gases in and out of the cell. It is not the cell wall. It is not the cell wall. The cell wall is just a freely permeable layer. So the layer that is responsible for, that is selectively permeable, that regulates the entrance and exit of food molecules and gases, is the cell membrane. And the cell membrane is the part labeled 2. That means our answer is the option D. Question 35. The part labeled 1 in the diagram is now this is a filamentous algae, this is a spirogyra. The part labeled 1 is the chloroplast. The spirogyra has spiral shaped chloroplast. So the part labeled 1 is the chloroplast. Question 36. The plant cell mostly stores food as. Now we said for animal cells, food is stored. And when we talk about food, our primary focus is on carbohydrates. Animal cells store theirs as glycogen. Then plant cells store theirs as starch. So do we have starch there? Yes. Option B is our answer. Question 37. The presence of a large number of mitochondria in a cell indicates that. Now we need to figure out the function of mitochondria. Mitochondria produces energy for the cell. So it means that a presence of a large number of mitochondria, such a cell will be endowed with a lot of energy. So what cell would, for example, require a lot of energy? You think of a cell like a muscle cell. Our muscles are actively involved in producing movement, so they need lots of mitochondria so that they produce a lot of energy to sustain their activity. So the presence of a large number of mitochondria in a cell indicates that that cell is very active, whether it is moving or it's carrying out certain activity. So let's look at our options. The cell is very active. That is true. It has little cytoplasmic content. No. The respiration is poor. No. In fact, if a cell has a large number of mitochondria, that means its respiration will be quite effective. The cell is dormant. No, a dormant cell cannot have a large number of mitochondria. So clearly, our answer is the option A. It means that the cell is very active. Cell is very active. Question 38. The protoplasm of a cell, of a living cell, protoplasm. Now, we said the protoplasm is made up of the nucleus and the cytoplasm. The protoplasm of a living cell is made up of the nucleus and, so 1835, the French scientist Félix Dujardin proposed that the living part of the cell is the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Then in 1839, the Czechoslovakian scientist Porkinje coined the word protoplasm to define the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So the protoplasm of a living cell is made up of the nucleus, and our correct answer is the cytoplasm. Question 39. The scientist who discovered the cell while examining a thin slice of cork under the microscope was. Now this happened in the year 1665, and this was the first man who studied the cell. His name was Robert Hooke, an English scientist. So of course our answer is the option A, Robert Hooke. And just to say, Matthias Schleiden was a German botanist who proposed that all plants were made up of cells. Theodor Schwann was a German zoologist who proposed that all. So here is a German botanist who proposed that all plants were made up of cells. That was in 1839. Then Theodor Schwann, German zoologist, who proposed that all animals were made up of cells. That was 1839 as well. Then Anton van Leeuwenhoek was the first to observe living cells under a microscope. Living cells under a microscope. This was, I think, around 1770 something. I can't be sure. Yeah, he was the first to observe living cells under a microscope, and he called them wee beasties. Wee beasties, as also sometimes referred to as animalcules. Animalcules, like molecules. We later discovered that what he actually observed were protozoans. Protozoans moving, because he actually he took a drop of pond water and viewed it under his microscope. And he was the first to actually produce an advanced microscope compared to what Robert Hooke had. Question 40. The scientists who discovered the honeycomb structure of the cell, honeycomb structure of the cell. Now, in the year 1665, the English scientist Robert Hooke took a thin slice of cork. Our cork here, Robert Hooke. He took a thin slice of cork, which is the bark of wood, and observed it under a crude microscope. A microscope that was quite crude, and as at that time, he invented it. And when he observed the thin slice of cork, he now observed empty boxes, which is sometimes referred to as a honeycomb structure. Now, based on these empty spaces or empty boxes, he now called it cells, after the Latin word cellula. And cellular translates as small room. Small room. So the honeycomb structure was discovered by our friend Robert Hooke. Question 41. The site for the production of ATP in a cell is... Now, the cytoplasm is the site for metabolic reactions. The Golgi body is the site for transportation, packaging and transportation of materials. The ribosome is the site for protein synthesis. And the mitochondrion is the site for energy production in the form of ATP. Energy is produced in the form of ATP. So based on these statements, our correct answer is the option A. Question 42. The structure in the cell that controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell. So when you look at the cell, the outermost covering is the cell membrane in an animal cell, while in a plant cell, the outermost membrane is the cell wall. Now, the nuclear membrane is just the membrane covering the nucleus. The cytoplasmic membrane is another term for the cell membrane. The cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance within the cell. And the protoplasm is a term for both the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So the cell membrane is a selectively permeable layer that regulates the materials that come in and go out of the cell. So our answer is the cytoplasmic membrane, option B. Question 43. The structure labeled 5 is the... So now this is a typical animal cell. The structure labeled 1 is the Golgi body. The structure labeled 2 is the mitochondrion. The structure labeled 3 is the nucleus. The structure labeled 4 is the nucleus, and the structure labeled 5 is the Golgi body or the Golgi apparatus. If you look carefully how to differentiate them, this structure here is the endoplasmic reticulum. For the endoplasmic reticulum, the tubules are interconnected. And that is what you see here. But you see, for the Golgi body or Golgi apparatus, the tubules are separate, independent units. They are not connected. That's what you see here. So the structure labeled 5 is the Golgi body or the Golgi apparatus. So that leaves us with the answer as option D. Question 44. The structure labeled 5 is, so structure 1 is the cell wall. This is a plant cell. Structure 2 is the cell membrane. Structure 3 is the Golgi body. Structure 4 is the chloroplast. Structure 5 is the same as structure 1 if you look carefully, the outermost covering. So structure 5 is the cell wall. Structure 6 is the vacuole, and structure 7 is the mitochondrion. And our interest is structure 5. So structure 5 here is the cell wall. So our correct answer is the option D, cell wall. Question 45. The structure of the cell membrane. Now the cell membrane is a phospholipid bilayer. It's a phospholipid bilayer. So let's look at the options. A middle bilayer of protein with a lipid bilayer on either side. A middle bilayer of lipid with a protein layer on either surface. A double layer and a double protein layer. A protein layer with 2 inner lipid layers. A protein layer with 2. This question needs to be flagged. There is no answer here because we would have gone for a middle bilayer, but there's no bilayer of protein. Question 46. The structure that produces ATP is labeled. Now again, this is a plant cell. 1 is a cell wall. 2 is a cell membrane. 3 is a Golgi body. Now 4 is a chloroplast. 5 is still a cell wall. 6 is the vacuole. And 7 here is the mitochondrion. You see the zigzag shape inside. You either see it with a zigzag shape inside, that's showing you the invaginations or the inner foldings called the cristae. So the structure that is the mitochondrion here is structure 7, and that means it is responsible for the production of ATP. So our correct answer is structure 7. Question 47. The structure that produces the energy required by the cell is labeled 2. Say again, the sausage-shaped structure with the zigzag or the infolding inside. This is another of it here, another of it here. See, so this is the mitochondrion, and the mitochondrion is responsible for the production of energy. That means our answer is the structure labeled 2. So A is our answer. Question 48. The unit contained in a cell structure responsible for changes in form and shape of an organism. Now, the units or the structures responsible for a change in form and shape are our genes. They are our genes. They determine the form and structure or shape of an organism. These are our genes. Genes are segments of DNA. A gene is a segment of DNA that determines an organism's inherited traits. So our correct answer is option A, gene. Question 50. What is the function of the part labeled 2 in the diagram? Now this is a diagram of filamentous algae called the Spirogyra. And the structure labeled 1 is the chloroplast. Is the chloroplast of this organism. And the structure labeled 2 is the cytoplasmic strand. The cytoplasmic strand, and if you look carefully, cytoplasmic strand, see one of it here, you see it extending here, you see it here, and you see it here. It's holding the nucleus. This structure here is the nucleus. So the cytoplasmic strand is holding on or supporting the nucleus. So let's look at our options. It manufactures food. No, it suspends the nucleus. It protects the chloroplast. It produces protein. The correct answer is it suspends the nucleus, from what you can see on our diagram. So our correct answer is B. Question 51. Which of the following cell inclusions can destroy other cell organelles? Now, the centriole is responsible for the formation of a mitotic spindle during mitosis in animal cells. It is responsible for the formation of the mitotic spindle during mitosis in animal cells. The ribosome is responsible for protein synthesis. It is the production of proteins. The mitochondrion is responsible for ATP or energy production, while the lysosome is responsible for intracellular digestion or breaking down worn out organelles and structures within the cell. So intracellular digestion. So let's go back to the question. The question says, which of the following cell inclusions can destroy other cell organelles? The only organelle or structure that can do that here is the lysosome. So our correct answer is the option D. Question 52. Which of the following cell organelle is the site for the production of ATP? So Mitochondrion is for ATP or energy production in a cell, also called the powerhouse of a cell. A lysosome is for intracellular digestion. That is to break down either worn out organelles or materials within the cell. The nucleus controls the activities of the cell, controls cell division, everything about the cell, the nucleus controls such. And then the ribosome is for the production of proteins, or what you refer to as protein synthesis. So clearly from this information, our correct answer is the mitochondrion, option A. Question 53. Which of the following cell types has the least number of mitochondria? Now, based on cell specialization, the function performed by a cell influences its structure. So if a cell um, has fewer mitochondria, it means that this cell does not require a lot of energy, because the mitochondria is responsible for the production of energy in the form of ATP. So any cell that performs a lot of activities like contraction, the movement of materials, will need more energy. So such a cell will have a huge amount of mitochondria. But here we're looking at the cell that has the least number of mitochondria. So let's look at a cell that carries out less activities. So starting with option A, cardiac cells of the heart. The cardiac cells of the heart are responsible for the contraction of the cardiac muscle of the heart. So this is doing a lot of job. Muscle cells are involved in contraction and relaxation to bring about movement. Cells of the conified layer. The conified layer is a layer of the skin. And then muscle cells of the bladder. You see, again, muscle cells, so long as your muscle cells, diaphragm, during respiration, as the lungs expand and relax, the diaphragm needs to contract and relax so as to control the movement of the lungs. Muscle cells of the bladder also needs to contract and relax as urine fills up the bladder. Now, the conified layer is a layer of the skin which does not need to carry out any vigorous activity, or does not need to contract or extend. So our answer in this case is option C, which is a cell that would have the least number of mitochondria. Which of the following, question 54, which of the following cells are not regarded as specialized? Now, when a cell is said to be specialized, it means that it has undergone change in its structure so that it is able to perform a specific or particular function. Now, root tip cells are specialized for growth, elongation of root tips. Muscle cells are specialized cells for contracting and relaxing to bring about movement. Sperm cells are specialized for swimming towards the egg and fertilizing the egg. Now, somatic cells, also called body cells, are unspecialized cells. Sometimes we also call them germinative cells. They are unspecialized cells, and so they can actually differentiate into other cells. For example, germinative cells or somatic cells undergo meiosis to form sperm cells in males. In females, somatic cells undergo meiosis to form ova, that's eggs. So muscle cells are specialized, root tip cells are specialized, sperm cells are specialized, but somatic cells are germinative or what we call undifferentiated cells. So they can become differentiated to give us any type of cell. So all other cells within the body of a multicellular organism are formed from body cells or somatic cells. So that leaves us with option D as our correct answer. Question 55. Which of the following cells is a specialized cell? So a specialized cell is a cell that has undergone differentiation or undergone a change in its structure to enable it perform a particular function. Now, Plasmodium is not a specialized cell. This is an animal-like protist called protozoa. The amoeba is also a unicellular organism, not a specialized cell. It is also an animal-like protist, protozoa. Now, the meristematic cells are cells that are also not specialized. They are not specialized, so they can give rise to other cells. Now, the guard cells are specialized cells that are found at the opening. They're found around the epidermis where they contract and relax so as to allow oxygen and carbon dioxide to diffuse in and out of the cell, and also water. They usually guard the opening called the stomata. So our answer here is option A, the guard cell. Question 56. Which of the following characteristics differentiates a palisade cell from a liver cell? Now, a palisade cell is a specialized plant cell that is responsible for photosynthesis. It's a specialized plant cell that is responsible for photosynthesis, while a liver cell is a specialized animal cell that is responsible for detoxification of harmful materials within the body. So a palisade cell is a plant cell. A liver cell is an animal cell. So we're going to use this knowledge to answer this question. So which of the following characteristics differentiates a palisade cell, which is a plant cell, from a liver cell, which is an animal cell? So this question is just indirectly asking you the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. The possession of a non-cell membrane and chloroplast. Every cell has a cell membrane, so that disqualifies option A. A vacuole and a nucleus. Now, they all have nucleus, a cell wall, and a chloroplast. This cell wall is unique to a plant cell. Chloroplast is unique to a plant cell. A cell wall and cytoplasm. All cells have cytoplasm. So this clearly leaves us with option C as the correct answer. Question 57. Which of the following is a similarity between a typical animal cell and a typical plant cell? Presence of A, centrally placed nucleus. Now, in plant cells, the nucleus is not centrally placed because of the huge vacuole. The huge vacuole pushes the nucleus to the periphery of the cell. So this is not true. Cellulose cell wall is unique to only plant cells. That is the outermost covering of plant cells. Our chlorophyll, again, this is unique to only plant cells. Chlorophylls are the green pigments contained in the chloroplast. The plant cells used to absorb solar energy to make food. Then cell membrane is a covering that is the first covering that directly delimits the cytoplasm, and it is found in both plant and animal cells. So that leaves us with option D as the correct answer. Question 58. Which of the following is not a cell organelle? Which of the following is not a cell organelle? Now, fat droplets is clearly not an organelle. This is a molecule. Golgi body is an organelle. In fact, it is a membrane-bound organelle. It is double membrane. Nucleus is double membrane, is also an organelle. Now, the ribosome recently has been classified as a structure in the cell and not an organelle because it is not considered as a membrane-bound organelle. Organelles are usually double membrane. However, for the purpose of this question, because it is O level, ribosome will count as an organelle, but at the A levels, ribosome is not an organelle because it is not considered as membrane bound. It just has a single covering. So for this question, we would go with fat droplets, which are just lipid molecules. Question 59. Which of the following is not correct about the living cell? Not correct about the living cell. A. The basic unit of a living organism is the cell. Now, this is true. This is one of the postulates of the cell theory. B. There is no life apart from the life in cells. This is very true. One of the postulates of the cell theory again. Option C. All living organisms are either single or groups of cells. This is very true. All living organisms are either unicellular or multicellular. Option D. All the cells in organisms are the same. Now, this is not true. This is not true. Cells are specialized to carry out different functions. For example, the red blood cell is specialized to transport oxygen. The palisade cells are specialized to carry out photosynthesis. Our nerve cells are specialized to receive and transmit electrical impulses. So that leaves us with option D as our answer. Question 60. Which of the following is not likely to be found in the cell of a ripe tomato fruit? Now, a tomato fruit is a plant, so it has a plant cell. Now, the interesting statement here is ripe. It is ripe. It means that this tomato fruit has produced all its food. For it to be ripe, it means that it has produced all its food, so it is no longer carrying out photosynthesis. But of course, it will need energy to stay alive. It has a cellulose cell wall because it's made up of plant cells. Now, the ripe tomato plant is no longer green. A ripe tomato plant is reddish in color, so it is clearly lacking chlorophyll because chlorophyll is the green pigment. Chlorophyll is the green pigment in the chloroplast that is used to absorb solar energy. So the tomato plant is ripe, meaning that it has manufactured or made all its food, so its color changes from green to red, clearly indicating that there is no more chlorophyll. So our answer is the option B. Question 61. Which of the following is not present in the nucleus of a cell? It's not present in the nucleus of a cell. Now, chromosomes are the thread-like structures that contain the DNAs, and they're found in the nucleus of a cell. Genes are structured. The genes are segments of DNA. They are segments of DNA. They are segments of DNA. And I just said that DNA are located inside the chromosomes. And the chromosomes are in the nucleus. So the chromosomes house the DNA, and segments of the DNA form genes. Then the nucleus is a dense granular structure. It's a dense granular structure within the nucleus. Within the nucleus. So if you look at the nucleus on its own, it has another dense granular structure inside. That structure is the nucleus. That structure is the nucleus. And the mitochondrion is the sausage-shaped structure that is double membraned, and it's found as an organelle in the cytoplasm. So clearly, our answer here, that is, which of the following is not present in the nucleus of a cell, is the mitochondrion. Question 62. Which of the following is not true of the nucleus of a living cell? Which of the following is not true of the nucleus of a living cell? It contains... Now, the nucleoplasm is the cytoplasm of the nucleus. The nucleoplasm is the cytoplasm of the nucleus. The nucleus is the dense granular structure within the nucleus. Dense granular structure within the nucleus. In fact, that is where we have the ribosomal RNAs. Or they are responsible for producing ribosomal RNA. Dense granular structure within the nucleus. So if this is to be the nucleus, the cytoplasm of the nucleus is the nucleoplasm. Then the dense granular structure is the nucleus. And then the chromatids refer to chromosomes. You see, when the chromosomes condense and they thicken and shorten, we call them chromatids. When the chromosomes thicken and shorten, we call them chromatids. Chromosomes is another term for chromatids. Chromosomes are still in the thread-like form. They are still in the thread-like form. By the time they condense and thicken, we call them chromatids. Now, let's go back to our question. It says, which of the following is not true of the nucleus of a living cell? So this nucleus needs to be alive. So it contains chromosomes, because we have some cells that do not have chromosomes because there's no nucleus. Like a mature red blood cell does not possess chromosomes because its nucleus is replaced by the hemoglobin. Question 63. Which of the following organelles are likely to be present in cells that are actively respiring and photosynthesizing? Actively respiring means they're producing a lot of ATP Photosynthesizing means they're making food. Now we'll ask ourselves the question, what organelles perform these functions? To actively respire in order to produce ATP, the cell needs mitochondrion. The cell needs mitochondrion, and then to actively photosynthesize, the cell needs chloroplast. So we're going to look for the option that carries these two organelles. Option A, endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi bodies, no. So of course, we are here with option B, chloroplast and mitochondria. Chloroplast is for photosynthesis, and mitochondria is for the production of ATP, which occurs during cellular respiration. Question 64. Which of the following organelles helps to remove excess water from cells? Excess water from cells. Now, in the protist, otherwise called the protoctistans, these organisms are found in fresh water. So there is a tendency for water to always move into their cytoplasm, like the amoeba, the paramecium. And because they don't have a cell wall that would protect them from bursting, they need to constantly get rid of excess water from their cytoplasm, or else they would burst. Like I said, they are found in fresh water, hypotonic environment. So the structure here, mitochondrion is for ATP production. Golgi body is for packaging and transportation of materials. Packaging and transportation of materials. The ribosome is for protein synthesis. And the contractile vacuole, specialized vacuole, now it's a specialized vacuole, is for pumping excess water from the cell. So that leaves us with A as our answer, the contractile vacuole. Question 65. Which of the following organelles is common to both plants and animal cells? Is common to both plant and animal cells. Cellulose cell wall is found only in plant cells. That's the outermost covering. A cell membrane is found in both plant and animal cells. That is the selectively permeable layer. Chlorophyll is the green pigment found in the chloroplast, which is exclusive to plant cells. A large vacuole, which is for storage, is also exclusive to plant cells. So the only structure here that is common to both plant and animal cells is the cell membrane. Even though it is not an organelle. The cell membrane is not an organelle. The cell wall is not an organelle. The only organelle here is a vacuole. These are cellular structures. Organelles are specialized structures within the cytoplasm. I guess this is O level. That's why they are using or misusing the word organelle. Question 66. Which of the following organelles is found only in plant cells? Organelle only in plant cells. Lysosomes is found in both plant and animal cells for intracellular digestion. So both plant and animal cells will have worn out organelles that will need to be broken down and the useful materials harvested by the cell. So lysosomes are found in both. Mitochondria for ATP production are also found in both plant and animal cells, because both plant and animal cells respire and they need energy to carry out their daily activities. Now, plastids are specialized organelles such as the chloroplast that are responsible for photosynthesis. And we know that plastids are exclusive to plants. These are exclusive to plants. Ribosomes are for protein synthesis, and they're found in both plant and animal cells. So that means the organelle here that is found only in plant cell is a plastid, of which a chloroplast is an example. Question 67. Which of the following parts of a cell is not an organelle? Is not an organelle. Now, the nucleus is an organelle because it is found within the cytoplasm and is double membraned. The cell wall is not an organelle because it is not found within the nucleus. It is not found within the cytoplasm. It is the outermost covering of a plant cell. The mitochondrion is an organelle. It's found within the cytoplasm and is double membraned. The food vacuole is an organelle and is double membraned. So our answer here is the cell wall, which is not an organelle but a cellular structure. Question 68. Which of the following statements about ribosome is not correct? About ribosome is not correct. Now, let me start by saying that ribosomes are small spherical structures. They're found in both plant and animal cells, and they are responsible for protein synthesis. So let's look at our options based on this information. Release enzymes for the digestion of bacteria. Now, this is a job for lysosomes. Lysosomes are responsible for intracellular digestion. Are attached to endoplasmic reticulum. Yes, we have ribosomes attached to endoplasmic reticulum. And when ribosomes are attached to endoplasmic reticulum, we call that endoplasmic reticulum a rough endoplasmic reticulum, rough ER. They are responsible for protein synthesis. Yes, we just said that here. Contain a large amount of ribonucleic acid, RNA. That is correct. There's a special type of RNA called rRNA. rRNA means ribosomal RNA. Ribosomal RNA. So what is not correct about them is option A, that says that they release enzymes for the digestion of bacteria. That is the job of lysosomes. So our answer is the option A. Question 69. Which of the following structures controls the activities of the living cell? Now, the chloroplast is for photosynthesis, to make food. That's not controlling the activities of the cell. The centrosome is responsible for the production of the mitotic spindle. The centrosome is a region where the mitotic spindle is formed. The nucleus controls the activity of the cell. So I said the centrosome is for the formation of the mitotic spindle, which is needed during cell division. Now, the nucleus controls the activities of the cell. The nucleus contains a DNA which codes for all the enzymes needed to carry out activities within the cell. So, and Golgi body is for packaging and transportation of materials. Packaging and transportation of materials within the cell. Now, based on this information, our correct answer would be option C, the nucleus. Question 70. Which of the following structures differentiates an animal cell from a plant cell? Differentiates an animal cell from a plant cell. Now, cell membrane is found in both plants and animal cells. Ribosome is found in both plant and animal cells. Mitochondrion is found in both plant and animal cells. The chloroplast is exclusive to plant cells. So our correct answer is the option D. It is unique to only plant cells. Question 71. Which of the following structures will not be found in the nucleus of a cell? Will not be found in the nucleus of a cell. Now, the DNA is the genetic material. It is, of course, found in the nucleus of a cell. It is found in the nucleus of a cell. Now, the centriole, they are ovoid structures arranged at right angle to one another, and they are found only in animal cells. Their job is to form the mitotic spindle when the cell is about to undergo mitosis or meiosis. So the centriole is actually found somewhere in the cytoplasm of the cell and not in the nucleus. The lysosome is found in the nucleus of the cell. The lysosome is found in the cytoplasm of the cell, where it picks up worn out cellular materials, breaks them down, and releases them for recycling. So it's like a recycling unit. And then for option D, the nucleus. The nucleus is the dense granular structure within the cytoplasm. Within the nucleus. The dense granular structure within the nucleus. So looking at this question here, which of the following structure will not be found in the nucleus of a cell? The centriole cannot be found in the nucleus of a cell, and the lysosome can also be found in the nucleus of the cell, because there are some materials that may not be needed or they are worn out. The lysosome's job is to also break them down. So our correct answer is the option B. Question 72. Which of the following substances is contained in chloroplast? It's contained in chloroplast. Now, chloroplast is found only in plant cells. And what do chloroplasts do again? They carry out photosynthesis. And what is produced during photosynthesis? Sugars. And what is the stored form of sugar in a plant? It's starch. So based on this, which of the following substances contained in chloroplast? Dextrine, no. Sugar, no. Glycogen, no. So our answer is starch. So you see, Sugar is produced, yes, but this sugar in plants is stored in the form of starch. So our correct answer is the option D. Question 73. Which of these organelles is common to both plant and animal cells? Common to both plants and animal cells. Chloroplast is exclusive to plant cells. Centriole is exclusive to animal cells. Yes, we don't have centriole in plant cells, even though plant cells can still form the mitotic spindle, but they do not have centrioles. Mitochondrion is common to both plant cells and animal cells. The pyrenoid is exclusive to plant cells, like the chlamydomonas. This plant-like protease, chlamydomonas, has a pyrenoid, and then the filamentous algae Spirogyra also has a pyrenoid. So what is common to both of them is clearly the mitochondrion. That's the organelle for the production of ATP or energy. So option C is our correct answer. Question 74. Which part of a plant cell contains cellulose? Now, cellulose is a structural carbohydrate. Structural carbohydrate in the sense that it is needed to form the framework of a part of a cell or organism. Starch is a storage carbohydrate. So structural carbohydrate like cellulose would be found in a part of the plant cell that is used for protection, offering rigidity, offering support, or giving the plant cell its rigid shape. Now that of course is not the vacuole, this is for storage. The chloroplast is to make food. The cell wall is for protection, offering a rigid cell wall and then support. So clearly our option or our correct answer in this case is the cell wall. It is the structure that would contain cellulose, and that explains why in some literature animal cell walls are not just referred to as cell walls, they are called cellulose cell wall. Question 75. Which two structures are present in a palisade cell but not in a liver cell? So a palisade cell is a plant cell. A liver cell is an animal cell. And a palisade cell is responsible for photosynthesis, while the liver cell is responsible for detoxification. That is converting harmful substances into harmless substances, and then they're passed out. So this question is indirectly asking us the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell. So a cell wall is present in only a plant cell. A chloroplast is also present only in a plant cell. So not even going further, we'll just pick option A as our answer, because cell membrane is found in both plant and animal cells. Cell membrane and cytoplasm in this case are found in both plant and animal cells, and then cytoplasm is found in both plant and animal cells.